Thank you very much, Wolfram. Now I would like to open floor for the discussion part of our session, but I would like to start with the questions, and after we continue with the suggestions. So if anybody has questions to the presenters, just would like more clarification of some of the topics which was mentioned by them. So floor is open for you. So everything was very clear. Okay. Please.
About the point 11 that has to be introduced, more information. I was asking myself what the information should concern. And then I was thinking about the distinction between price and value. We cannot say a building or a house hasn't an intrinsic value, because that would be absurd, as it would be absurd to say that the value of a house is its price. So, what is the goal of the appraisal? What is the goal to the information? What the consumer should know? I think we could say that is how to know the real value of the house he's buying. Because prices may rise, prices may fall. See what's happening in Dubai, for instance. But intrinsic value must be something that one should be able to know regardless of the price that that house has in a certain moment. So I think that the access to the appraisal rules and the access to all the informations that could give us the real value, intrinsic value of the house are absolutely basic. And maybe we should say it more clear, if you agree.
You're looking at me, so I due to comment. I just reported back from session 1, and that was the suggestion of our colleague from Ontario to have some consumer education concerning investments in certain real estate packages, I guess, and this is where really there is no transparency, and where there could be some more information on what people are really buying, and I guess that's the main reason why our colleague had introduced that principle. Whether it should be a single principle as such or should go somewhere within the study, I do not know. I'm just giving you the participants' opinion at that point.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if I can comment on this particular point of valuation, intrinsic value. It is a matter that has been discussed at length at the European Group of Valuers Association, and of course it is something that has to some degree been picked up by European legislation. You'll all be aware of the directive which talks about bases of valuation to be used for mortgage lending purposes, and one is market value, the other is mortgage lending value, which is fundamentally a more long-term look at value, and I think that is what the last speaker was really referring to. And it is an interesting concept. It's actually very much not an Anglo-Saxon concept, I'm afraid to say, who we tend to believe in only looking at the particular market at one point in time. However, it is an interesting point, and it's one that I think could be explored further, and it can only be made meaningful, I think, if we do have a very strong statistical basis to support it, and thus some of the discussion on statistics that have been over the last 2 days may well assist us with that. I don't know if this helps clarification or the reverse, but I thought I should mention this.
Federico?
The concept of value has been discussed in economic theory from a couple of centuries, and it was never worked out. my personal opinion, when I tell this to my friend Michele, and the intrinsic value in real estate is something like the Arab Phoenix, in the sense that everybody knows it exists, but nobody has ever seen it. This is my idea. I want to be more serious. If we want to represent the value of a house or building or flat in monetary terms, I don't believe it exists any intrinsic value. It's not just a question of definition. It doesn't exist at all. Price is the value. Maybe we may work out with all these distinguished experts in future sessions and future work some criterion in terms of intrinsic value, not expressing monetary values, in the sense that a building has a lot of resources exceeding the concept of prices, energy saving rather than environment, rather than solidity in construction. But these factors, I don't want to mean that are not relevant. My point is that they cannot be expressed in monetary terms, in euro or dollars, because, okay, in Abu Dhabi or in Dubai, prices are changing. But the real value, if you want to express it in dollars or euros, is the price today. What the economic theory says that you go to the market with your cabbage and you try to sell it, and its value is the maximum price you can get selling today at this time on the market your cabbage. And that's all. But we could extend the concept from price to value under the condition that you don't pretend to express that in dollars or in euros. This is my personal view.
Thank you. Any other topics?
I just thought I'd like to make a further follow-on remark, which was that it's a matter of reflection that the International Accounting Standards Committee has been much criticized because they introduced the concept of marking to market for the assets of banks, which has resulted in the banks suddenly find themselves in a position where they, on the face of it, are out with all requirements in terms of risk and solvency, etc. And therefore, it has exposed the problems that they face at one point in time. And this is due to the mark-to-market, as opposed to looking, as the banks would have hitherto done, of taking a rather long-term view of the value of their assets. So, okay, you're in a bottom of a cycle, but we expect things to improve in the future. So it's merely a reflection. I don't make any formal proposal about this, not unless I've had time to think about it anyway. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Please.
Terry Duncan with the Appraisal Institute. I'd like to maybe offer just a little bit of an outside perspective on what's transpired over the last 2 days as I sat here and listened. One of the earlier speakers mentioned the fact that we really had 3 different markets that we were looking at. One is the undeveloped markets, the developing markets, and the fully developed markets, if you will. And as I read through the principles, it seemed to me that they did a pretty good job of laying out the principles necessary to assist developing markets and undeveloped markets in creating efficient and effective real estate markets around the world, in particular here in Europe. But as I read the introduction to the principles, and if you bear with me just for a moment, I want to read the first sentence in the introduction and then the first sentence right before the aims of the guidelines are laid out. And that is, during the recent UNECE seminar organized in New York on December 16, 2008, entitled The Real Estate and Financial Crisis, Causes, Effects, and Impacts on Development, it was highlighted that the current global financial crisis is the result of inadequate regulation of real estate and financial markets. And then the next sentence right before the aim says, these guidelines represent a specific attempt to address the current lack of regulation and guidance. And frankly, as I read through the principles, I didn't see anything except one principle that addressed those two highlighted issues. And the current crisis was not caused by the undeveloped or the developing real estate markets. It was caused by the markets that are pretty much fully mature and have embodied most, if not all, of the principles that we've laid out here for the developing and undeveloped markets. So I just present that for your consideration. It seemed to me that the cause of the crisis, I'm not sure was fully addressed in the principles. Thank you.
Thank you. Jonathan?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to wholeheartedly support the comments that we've just heard, which goes to the root of my concerns about Principle 7. And I feel that as it's my last chance, I better have a go at trying to persuade you all that actually the real estate market, the way that we have been operating, has nothing whatsoever to do with the banking crisis that has occurred. And I think that it is extraordinarily important that we do not give any impression whatsoever under these guidelines that for some reason or other we have to change what we've been doing, otherwise there's going to be another crisis. And I'd like to just draw to your attention Principle 7 and the wording of it. It starts off by saying advanced real estate financial products similar to those developed by securitization should be redefined, as these have significantly contributed to the current global financial crisis. Now, the truth is, securitization has done the complete opposite. We do not wish, I like to suggest we do not wish, to prevent securitization. We in the real estate market should be doing everything we can to encourage those with brains and know-how to develop all sorts of products that will help the liquidity of the real estate markets around the world. I promise you, money, property development, social housing follows money. And the more that securitization and products can be generated, the better it is for the real estate market. What we need to ensure is that those operating in the securitization market, those dealing with the paper, the banks, the investment houses, the brokers, etc., that they actually start to educate themselves to know what they're dealing with. So what I'm most anxious that we as REM do not do is somehow give the impression that what has been a fantastic market since the early 80s, or at the beginning of the, just before the beginning of the 90s, which is securitization, increasing of money supply, handling, packaging mortgages to ensure that the financial institutions have more liquidity that goes into the market to help housing and commercial property, that we don't somehow make any suggestion that this is bad. On the contrary, it's excellent. The problems are that those who've been dealing with the paper that has nothing to do with the real estate market start to get their act together. That's all I wanted to say, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Andrea? You were Jonathan? Okay.
Mi scuso se parlo in italiano, ma il concetto è complesso e voglio dirlo in 2 parole, ma chiarire il senso del punto 7. Le cartolarizzazioni riguardano e riguarderanno asset immobiliari. Chissà come funzionano le cartolarizzazioni e come vengono valutati, come sono stati valutati gli asset, sa che spesso non c'è collegamento tra valore degli asset e valore del bond, del titolo. Chi è che ha certificato tutto questo? Le agenzie di rating. Chi è che può intervenire sulle agenzie di rating? Non certo noi. Sono le istituzioni finanziarie internazionali. Noi possiamo solo indicare qual è una criticità in questo senso, a mio avviso. Quindi grazie Jonathan per il commento, ma ci sono le istituzioni finanziarie che devono fare la loro parte. La vigilanza sulle agenzie di rating è importante. Chi di voi ha dei documenti che sono dei draft informali che riguardano diciamo, l'obiettivo di rivedere i mercati finanziari avrà già preso visione che c'è anche questa consapevolezza da parte delle istituzioni finanziarie internazionali nell'andare ad individuare e risolvere potenziali conflitti di interesse e potenziali carenze. Intendo, le triple A che sono state date nelle cartolarizzazioni, in effetti devono essere ripensate da chi le ha date, ma qualcuno sopra probabilmente deve anche dare degli input. E non mi dilungo, grazie.
Thank you. Andrea, please.
Thank you. Yeah, my comment is in the same line. According to Principle 7, the wording should be redefined. The wording is not should be unlegal, and I think that's the difference. There are some products on the market which should be redefined because there are some very unhealthy developments, and this has nothing to do to be pro or con securitization. It has something to do that some products in the field of securitization are not longer acceptable in the market. I think that means the wording of Principle 7.
Okay, Jonathan.
I'm so sorry just to continue because I think it's such an important issue. Can I draw to your attention Guideline 1? It says the valuation and rating of the warranty-backed financial products must have a direct connection with the value of real estate under warranty, as assessed by an independent valuer, or it should be valuer or valuator. I would like to say, Mr. Chairman, that this is not an issue for REM. This is an issue for those who are in business buying and selling paper. The banks, the institutions, the financial cities are selling paper backed by shares, bonds, equities. They can do it backed by baked bean cans. That's not the issue. And whether or not they issue paper backed theoretically by property, it is not us who should be saying, oh, it's got to be directly connected to the value. We might say that. They can have it directly connected to the value, and the whole thing can go belly up anyway, because actually the paper that they're selling is actually not appropriate. So what I'm cautioning us all about is to avoid getting muddled up with the valuation and suggestions as to what would make a proper real estate market in developing countries and doing all the things that we've been talking about, and getting that somehow muddled with a suggestion that products issued by financial markets somehow or other will be better, will be safer, might be more secure if these guidelines were put into effect. I believe the answer is they won't be, because it's all to do with how they're selling the paper. And I think it would be doing ourselves a disservice by having this type of issue within our guidelines. I will now stop making any more comments on them.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. I'd just like to remind you that we have about 6 more minutes And we have some changes in agenda also. I will announce that. Please.
So I'll be very, very, very quick. I think Jonathan has raised various very important points. I think basically Principle 7, as it is currently expressed, is not something that we should endorse. I think it does need careful rephrasing. I think the point about transparency in the work carried out by valuers in part of in what is provided for due diligence is an important point. However, the points that raised by Jonathan are also significant. The fact is that it isn't all down to us. So I think it does need to be carefully rephrased to give the opinion that we probably wish to express, which I think I probably understand, but which is not well expressed as it is put down at present. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian, please.
Can I just sort of try and put back some reality into where we started from? The genesis for REM putting the guidelines together started well before the financial crisis. It was agreed when we started REM that a creation of guidelines for the real estate market would be of help, and Giampiero and we started the process. The meeting that was held in New York in December was to address the particular financial crisis, and it wasn't really from that meeting that the need for these guidelines emerged. And I think what has happened in the intervening period is that the financial crisis has hijacked, if you like, what we have created. The introduction that is in those guidelines is probably misleading in that they weren't designed to attract or to look at the particular crisis. They are designed and should be continued to be designed to be purely generic. And if I agree with Jonathan and others that 7 may very well not be in there, but there should be some reference within the principles for the financial sector. So I think if we can get back to what the original reason for putting guidelines together to be generic rather looking at the particular crisis that we find ourselves in, then we'll probably be doing a better service to the people that we originally were aiming them at.
Thank you very much, Brian. Please.
Is there time for me to say something? Or is there time now?
For lady, 1.5 minutes.
Thank you. Yesterday when I spoke at the beginning with regard to data, I said I didn't know whether it would be appropriate to have a new principle because data is going all through these principles. But when I look at it, and we look that within Principle 2, it talks about the efficient system for the registration, cataloguing and classification of real property. Principle 3 includes data and information on market trends. Principle 8 includes sufficient transparency in data for information regarding comparable sales. And through the course of this discussion, we've also had requirements for transparency of financial projects. Consumers should have information, transparency relating or information relating to securitization. There have been suggestions that there are many sources of information, and there was a suggestion earlier that a directory might be useful for bringing the different property information sources together. And we've been talking about best practice as well. These are all information issues, and my feeling is that as a result, it might be appropriate to have an extra principle that focuses on the benefits for creating transparency through data. And that's my suggestion.
Okay, thank you very much. Chairing this session, I'm really very happy that we have quite a hard discussion. But unfortunately we are limited in time. So I would like once again to ask you to send us your suggestions or remarks regarding this checklist.